Hello everyone, welcome to Zoho Sheet's webinar. I'm Jaya Shankari, the product marketer for Zoho Sheet, and I'll be the host for today's session. So in this webinar, we'll be talking about custom functions in Zoho Sheet. So custom functions are nothing but those personalized functions that you can create for your unique business needs apart from those predefined functions that are already available. So let's begin. First, we look into a brief introduction about Zoho Sheet, the whole product itself, and then we'll move on to the topic for today's session, that is custom functions, and we'll jump into a demonstration to see how this feature actually works inside the product. So why Zoho Sheet? For those of you who are not using Zoho Sheet yet, Zoho Sheet is an online spreadsheet application that gives you a perfect blend of analytical features such as functions, charts, pivot tables, and collaboration features such as sharing, real-time collaboration, commenting, etc. And all these basic and advanced features are provided for free. In Zoho Sheet, all your files will be stored on the cloud, so you can access them anywhere using any device instead of sticking on to one particular hardware device. And Zoho Sheet is also available on iOS and Android, so you can use your spreadsheets on the go using your smartphones. So coming to the session's topic, what are custom functions? Zoho Sheet already provides you with more than 400 predefined functions by default, but we do realize that our users might have some business needs that are unique and may need some personalized functions they can create, save, and reuse frequently across your spreadsheets. That's why we came up with custom functions. So custom functions in Zoho Sheet is powered by Deluge. Deluge is a language created by Zoho, and we call it the programming language for non-programmers because the drag and drop interface of Deluge is that easy and simple to create and use. So these custom functions will help you save a lot of time and increase efficiency. In Zoho Sheet, custom functions can be used in two ways. First, for calculations and other spreadsheet use cases. And secondly, for bringing in contextual data from other applications. So you can bring in contextual data from other Zoho products such as Zoho CRM, Zoho Books, Zoho Projects, etc. or even other third-party applications using their API. So now we'll jump into the demonstration. So this is Zoho Sheet's new user interface we had recently announced. So you can see that we have cleaned up the menu and toolbar, and apart from that, we've also provided a contextual side panel that will give you the options based on the feature you are actually working on at the time. And apart from that, we are also providing some features by default on the side panel, such as functions, comments, and chat. So in the functions panel, you'll get the complete list of predefined functions that are available in Zoho Sheet, as well as those custom functions will also be listed here that you create. So this functions panel will help you view those functions, their description, syntax, etc. So once you've created a function, you'll know how it works, how you're supposed to use it, and this will also be helpful for the collaborators that are using your spreadsheet too. So we'll look into this at the end again. Please note that custom functions is only available in the new version of Zoho Sheet. So if you are using the old version of Zoho Sheet, you can come to the new version using the try new version option on the right top corner of the spreadsheet editor. So first I'm going to show you how we can create a basic custom function for calculating the simple interest for this sample data. So for that, I'll go to Tools, Custom Function, Create. So in this Create dialog, first you'll have to enter the function's name. So mine will be simple interest. If you have a description that you would like to mention, you can mention it here. Otherwise, you can just skip it. You can also define the result type here for the function. And then you can define the arguments for your function syntax. So for my function that is simple interest, I have three arguments I can mention. There is principal, rate of interest, and the number of years. So I'm just going to mention my arguments here, and I'm going to define their types. So if you're sure that the input numerical value is not going to be a decimal value, you can go with integer. But if you think the input can be a decimal value, go with float. So my input values here can be decimal values, so I'm going with float. for all the three, and I'll create. So this brings me to the Deluge editor. So as you can see, the Deluge editor has a list of expressions that are already given. You can simply drag and drop these expressions into the editor and create your function with ease. So first, I'm just going to drag and drop this expression here, that is set variable. So this will give me a sample syntax that I can start typing my function on. So on the left hand side will be the variable name, which has to be returned for me as a result. So I'll just give a name saying simple interest. And on the right side will be the actual syntax for my function. So my syntax for this function will be principal into rate into number of years by 100. So while typing the syntax, make sure that the argument names that you're using in the syntax are exactly same to that you have defined previously in the create dialog. So now that my syntax is ready, I'll move on to the next line, that is the return line. So in this line, I'll have to give the variable name that has to be returned as a result for me. So from this syntax, my variable name is simple interest that I've mentioned here on the left. So I'll type in simple interest. So I'm getting a suggestion. I'll just go on with that suggestion. So my function is ready right now. Now I'm going to save it. If your function is having any errors, they'll be listed here at the bottom of the editor. Now my function is not having any errors, so it has been saved successfully. If you want to check your function before actually using them on your spreadsheet, or if you want to see a trial and check if your function is working correctly, you can use the option here called run. So that will give you a dialog where you can enter sample values and check if your function is giving out the right output. So here I'll enter sample values, say 1000, 3.5 and 2, and click on OK. And here at the bottom of the editor, you can see that the function is giving me an output. So now I know that my function is working perfectly. So I'll just close this dialog and I'll use the function in the spreadsheet now. These custom functions can be used similar to the way predefined functions are used in any spreadsheet application. So we'll start with an equal sign and start typing the function's name. So that is simple interest for me. As you can see, the function suggestions that are shown in the drop-down changes contextually as I start typing the characters. So my function's name is simple interest. We got it there. I'll just select it and I'll select the ranges similar to how I do that for other predefined functions. There we go, and enter. So there's my result. For the other rows, I'm just going to fill them using double tap, and yes. So it's that simple to create and use. So similarly, if you wish to give a list of maps or a list of data records as input and get a list of values as the output in one step or in one shot, you can do that too. So I've already created a function called interest here. So for this function, I'm going to give the whole list of maps or the list of data records as input. That will give me the complete result for this particular data in one single step. So this will save you a lot of time when you're working on a large sum of data. So there's another example we can see for custom functions. Let's take this sample data where you can see that there's a column with invoice numbers, and this column has a combination of string and numerical values. Let's say I want to separate out the numerical values from this particular column of data. So for that, I've already created a custom function named getNumber. So I'm going to use that function, give the invoice number as input, and enter. I've got the numerical value as my result. I'm just going to fill it up, and yes. So you can use these custom functions for any kind of use case you want to perform inside your spreadsheet with your data. So this is all about the first use case for custom functions. Now let's move on to the second use case, that is bringing in contextual data from other applications. So this will be the sample spreadsheet I'm going to use for this demonstration. So when I say bringing in contextual data from other applications, I mean you can define how and what data has to be fetched and brought into your spreadsheet. So we'll start by creating a simple function for bringing in the complete data from one CRM module. So let's call this function CRM leads, because I'm going to bring in data from the leads module of CRM. And my result type will be list here, since it will be a list of data records, and create. So you're back in the Deluge editor. Again, you can see the list of expressions here. In that list, you can find a section called integrations here. So under integrations, you can find an expression called Zoho integration. So simply drag and drop Zoho integration, and on the left hand side, give a variable name that has to be given as the result, followed by the Zoho service. So while you click on service, it will give you the list of all those Zoho products that are actually integrated with Sheet for custom functions. So you can scroll through and select the product of your choice. So right now we are going to fetch data from Zoho CRM. So I'll select CRM. So the action here for me will be bringing in data, so that will be get records. So here, and the module name. So this is Zoho CRM's user interface. So you can see that all the modules in Zoho CRM are being listed at the top, and I can select the module from which I want to fetch data from. So this is the leads module, and I'm going to fetch this data into my spreadsheet. So I'll type in leads here in this editor. Make sure that the module name is exactly similar to what is mentioned in that particular application you're bringing data in from. And my syntax is ready, so I'll go to the next line where I'll be defining which variable is supposed to be given as the result for my function. There we go. So now my function is ready. I'll just go and save it. So there are no errors in this function, so it has been saved successfully. Now I'll just minimize it and use it in my spreadsheet. So as I had already mentioned, this function will bring in the complete data that is present in the leads module of my Zoho CRM account. So here you can see that all the data that is present in that particular leads module has been brought into my spreadsheet from my Zoho CRM account. So similarly, you can also create functions that bring in filtered data based on your need alone. So you need not bring in the whole or complete data that is present in Zoho CRM. Instead, you can bring in data that is only necessary for you inside the spreadsheet. So we'll look into an example called CRM info here. So in this function, you can see that I've mentioned that I want only these 5 columns of data in my spreadsheet. And here you can also see that I'll be giving the user's email ID as the input, and I'll be fetching the data corresponding to those email IDs. So we'll see how that works in the spreadsheet. So this will be my sample data. As you can see that I've already mentioned the table headers here and the list of email IDs. So the data that is being brought from Zoho CRM will fall here contextually based on the table header that is already mentioned and based on the input email ID that I'm going to give here. So let's start with CRM info. I'm giving the email ID as input and enter. So there we go. So you can see that the data falls contextually under those headers in the table. So if these headers are not similar to those that are present in the source application, you can even define them in such a way that the data from those headers fall into the defined headers that you have in your spreadsheet. So now that I have one record ready, I'm just going to fill it. So as I fill the data, you can see that the chart below the data changes contextually. So in this manner, you can create reports in your spreadsheet using CRM data. So this way you'll get the data that is actually needed inside your spreadsheet. So, and it will save you a lot of time. So similar to what we had seen in the simple interest function, where you can give a list of maps or list of data records as input and get a list of values as the result. Here we can see how we can give a list of values as the input and get a list of data records or a list of maps as the result or output. So for that, I'll be using the function leads info, and we'll be giving the list of email IDs as a whole as the input, and that will give me the complete result as the output in one step. So similar to this, we look into other examples. So here I'll be bringing in data from Zoho Books, that is an accounting software from Zoho. So you can see that I've already mentioned the headers here for my table, and I've also entered formulas here in my cell that will calculate based on the values that will be brought in from Zoho Books. So for that, I'm going to type in my function name, that is invoice details, and enter. So this will bring in the invoice details from my Zoho Books account into my spreadsheet, and you can see that the formula calculate on their own once the input values are here. So this way I can make reports in an instant using custom functions. So similar to this, we'll look into another example where we'll be bringing in data from Zoho Projects. So Zoho Projects is a project management application from Zoho. So let's say you want to have a list of all those tasks. So for that, we'll type in the function's name, that is task list, and enter. So that will give me the list of tasks that are already present in my Zoho Projects account. And you can see that under the priority column, I've applied conditional formatting in such a way that those tasks or projects with the highest priority must be highlighted for me. So this way you'll know which tasks or projects you're supposed to actually concentrate on right now. So that's all about custom functions in Zoho Sheet. As I had mentioned in the beginning of this demonstration, the functions panel will give you the complete list of functions that are already present in the Zoho Sheet by default, and those functions that you create using Deluge in Zoho Sheet. So you can find your functions in two ways. First, you can find them using the category here. You can simply select on custom functions, and that will give you the list of all those custom functions that you had created across spreadsheets. Or you can use this search bar to search for those functions you have created. So that will give you the function's name, the description, and the syntax, so your collaborators can also easily know how to use this function. So that's all about custom functions in Zoho Sheet. If you have any queries or doubts about custom functions in Zoho Sheet, or if you need any help in creating custom functions for your unique use cases, you can drop us an email at any time to this support ID, that is support@zohosheet.com, and we'll be there to help you out right away. And if you have any questions or feedback about this webinar, you can drop them in the comments below. You can also find the help guide link for custom functions in the description of this video. Thank you all for being a part of this webinar. Thank you.